Oh, that's so. That's one good thing.
Okay, so we are going to start.
Last with that, Karshe Goringaso, a Yondeji Kirka, give Chomo Tanjani, Kichat and Rotavare.
Yes, so we already covered the topics of the person with a small capacity and the person with medium capacity in the text of the foundation of all good qualities.
Tani Tangatsu Yondeji Kirka, Sauro Tanda, Kutundi, Goji to Chikta Jana, Dromjig Chani, Nanchu Gonga Tamba Tansa. The Nolata, Nanchu Zia the Carrier, Yapon, the Chingotia, Yonsare, and the Jipchata Shinto Maratli. Yodeji Tingonga, the Toma Nota, number to Carche, they do number to Yamiche on Carrier Sare, Nanchus in a Carrier Sare, they approach you, Jean Troel, Pintochimbo Sare, Samudu.
So there is also one thing that I forgot to mention in the past classes, and it is that the text, the foundation of all good qualities, it is actually a text which we can consider as the framework of Buddhism, because by studying this text, we can have a certain idea of what is the Buddhist practice, what does the Buddhists are doing, what does it mean Buddhism, and therefore it's kind of completed with all the kind of main points in Buddhism.
Penatong Gongoni Masalochi on the number to get it on the Lama Tendon, get it or take and check over Patindrotaro. And it's also me and Tanzia and drummers that Sawachimbo Catio, but no, but the Tanzania Kawas at the Terwa. And it all my teachers there at Sawachimbo, but it's a trollaton, but teach it to me top a shilio.
So if we take, for example, if we take this text from the beginning until what we reached until now, so we can see that at the beginning we started with discussing about the manner of relying on a spiritual teacher or the manner of relying on a teacher. We can say it's kind of the same thing, right? And this topic we already covered at the beginning. And then we kept through to appreciating the human life or seeing or valuing like what is the preciousness of the human rebirth. And we talked that the human rebirth is endowed with the leisures and endowments, and it is really, really hard to obtain. And then we also proceeded and continued to the idea of that by seeing that our life is very valuable, we should not waste them. We should not just misuse them. And then there was the section about the impermanence. So this is where we reached, right?
Last one, Sonsa, Tanato, Chulabsa Gayo Pache, and is also Stin Sawachimbo to your Pache, Titoya your Pache, Tigoni, Tinato, Kevichum Chetri and Rory, Kevin Yam Chetri and Rosari, that recovers a papatel, Domba Songore, the Ati or Cholokachin Dutini Mandrayan.
10,000 for your Pache.
So. Get in the shipache, teni, so the children say 10 Tanjopili in the Yopache, teni, Metapas out on the Tizo de on Tamzache, teni, give a chumut on jungle. Some lot Rosar, give a chumi yamni chest on Kanjim, but a given drinking yamni chest on Kanjim, but there's a touch of on Rosar.
Yes, so we can say that we already covered the section about how to rely on a teacher, which is the one who shows us the spiritual path. And then we already covered the section which is talking about the basis that we have for practicing the path, the spiritual path. And then we talked about the impermanence, which we remember in order to take advantage of our time and to make the most of the time that we have. So we can say that we covered the spiritual practices in the sections of the person with small capacity and person with medium capacity. And now we are moving forward, and today we are going to discuss mainly about the different vows in Buddhism.
Tani, Takas Papa de Sholokater Nam of Sambati, Chambai, Chandashi Pai Chimbui, Dambita, Soso Tarpala, Japan, which Perchini loves Zetita, Soso Tabi, Dombatel Shewo, Nam of Sambati, Chamba, Zetia, and Naturtion, Jungle Katakishi, Nim Jones, the details they were.
So now I'm going to read the verse from the text. Led by this pure thought, mindfulness, alertness, and great caution arise. The root of the teaching is keeping the pratimoksha vows. Please bless me to accomplish this essential practice. So here in this verse, it is discussing directly the topic of the one's own liberation vows, the liberation vows. And this is a topic which is concerning the scope of a medium, the medium scope, like the person with the medium scope. And we can say that that led by this pure thought. So here in this context, this pure thought, it is referring to the thought of renunciation or the resolution to be free from samsara.
So nga so ngemjong go domba zeatal ngemjong mombo chingel sheor ngemjong go yapo chigzen ngemjong ngel nga so kansa ke mombo shere nya zongkang le pejar ni te kyo chenge yo jere pe nga so tanda ne sonro to so zongkang no yo na ji sa lo ta deli targo sa ni ngem sakkan da samlo chikle de ro o tan chi yo na ngemjong yapo chi yore ngaru so zeinda ngaru so tanda nga so mu che ki tang zena nyawal ke na yetal ke na mel ke na ka ke na zonka nariyo ate chikpan rawo chi res garzeti so tsowa la so pata de dikanga pa nyer chok chok yete kyuni menjo kawa yina njenjo ni tari yapon chi re na te zge de pol njenjo ya chi de pol ya yapo pa njer ni yete kyuni chem so sa teni chi yim ba hakun tan deli tarbi tarba je at ni par to bo sambi samba thapi ga sablo yo pa teni chi chona ni njong je at teni chi la wo re Mambo Chile
So we already, I think that it's good that I'll discuss this topic before. So with regards to the topic of renunciation or the resolution to be free from samsara, we already discussed about this topic before. I don't know if you remember. So we gave an example for the samsara. We can also call it the cyclic existence. We gave an example of it to like a prison. And it means that basically we should see the situation that we are at right now like a prison. And if, according to the text, we have, like according to the scriptures, we have this kind of wish, day and night, not unceasing wish that arises within us to be free from this kind of prison, so we can say that we actually achieved, we cultivated to the right extent the thought of renunciation, the attitude of renunciation. So we can think that basically our situation right now is that it doesn't matter which kind of rebirth we are going to take, whether we are going to take human rebirth or rebirth in the hungry ghost realm or in the animal realm. It doesn't matter which kind of rebirth we are going to take. The situation that we are going to be at is going to be very, very unstable, nothing that we can actually rely on. In terms that the happiness and the suffering that we experience, they are subject to change very, very quickly, and they are not stable. And therefore, when it's happy, like when we have good situation, so it can just change really all of a sudden and just change into something else. And when we have bad situation, it can also change into something else very, very quickly. So by understanding this, if someone is having the thought that, oh, I must be liberated from this kind of situation, we can say that one has cultivated to good extent the renunciation.
So tanda namtok samba ngemjong yapo jikeni jamba sa shivjen da payo to tsole teni da so domba de yapo jik son shok la wori dan su to domba yosa chigla shi yori domba yosa ta so jamba zina so domba kar son go yo son cha kar yo te jamba yapo che ani shivjen de dis koro son jiwa ta so yapo son to ndu so samlo le tanis charache de ning samlo chigori tele shijin de ani payo zedi ta zabza shu cheni ta chini kani ma chewa che songo ji mba hakko jin de mason chemeni de hakko jin de che de ya ta zol pa me la gre de me cheni zabza che ya ta la pa me o de chamba ta shijin da payo la teni so ta wi domba te ya po chi son shong ze tandi Tsuche tsamba la jingi lobze ore tenga songe ma gol chiti tsojan ji kenje ya chi ojima yonde ji kel ko ni nyamle chena tsojan ji ni parti yo kore tsojan ha ko tsojan zena lama yeta sanja tsojan ji ter ni ma ni nga tso ko tso le chi she sare te yo ba ji ra chi ni tso le ni domba ya po son te pi chela no ro chi zeni ta jingi lobze al tamade ti to la dare
So, if we are going according to the verse, so we said that led by this pure thought, we can say that this is the thought of renunciation, the resolution to be free from samsara. So, having cultivated this kind of thought to good extent, then it is said that mindfulness, alertness, and great caution arise. So, these three types of minds are being presented here. And it is said that by relying on these type of three minds, three mental factors, if we are being accurate. So it is said that by relying on this, we should observe our vows. Like one should observe his vows by relying on this. So then, if we are going by, we discuss each kind of these types of minds. So at first we have the mindfulness, right? And the mindfulness is that which understands like what I'm guarding and being aware of it and being kind of mindful with regards to it, what kind of I need to guard, what kind of vows I have and I need to protect. And then we have the alertness, and it is that kind of mind which kind of looking or what is a good word for it? Kind of observing like very carefully, like what am I doing, like whether I'm observing the vows or not, being like alert with regards to it. And then we have the cautious. We have, the great caution. And the great caution, in that sense, it is the opposite of not being really cautious with regards to our action. It is, for example, when we know that we need to observe a certain vow, we need to guard a certain vow, and knowing that, we still go against the vow, we still act against this kind of specific vow. So this is the opposite of this kind of attitude. And then it is said in the end that please bless me. And when we say please bless me, so we already assume that we have the practice of the pure field that we already discussed before in the previous classes. So the pure field, again I gave an example while pointing on this tanka of the different Buddhas and so forth. And in front of them, we kind of ask their help for us to accomplish this kind of thing.
Na certainly. Ta indi capital so tai domba de yaposon to chelap cheze ondita dombi kechat sheore keton dombi kechat domba yuni chig sheare tonga chena tombo sambala nge jaja komundro sa sonda yon samlo chitanda sundi dombi korte an chotso kandi zeli yo pachi hako sonda no jima domba korshi ondo on de chig yo pare samba hako ya chig chetni teri domba kipshe chig chegi.
So therefore the topic of this verse, it is to say that please bless me with regarding these vows, more specifically the liberation vows, the ones individual liberation vows. And this kind of a line in the verse, it is mainly referring to those who possessing such vows. And therefore I thought that it would be good if you have like some kind of understanding or framework, understanding like what are these different vows. So in the future, if you hear these topics being discussed in Buddhist classes and so forth, so you can understand what is going on, kind of. So I'm going to kind of present this thing in concise manner.
Nambi jongo nal domba tavi chani china riksum shempare soso tavi domba zeada ta chancho sepi domba zeada no ki domba zeli sum shepare.
So we have from the Buddhist scriptures there are three types of categories for vows. There is the one's own liberation vows, there is the bodhisattva vows, and there is the tantric vows.
Ani soso tavi domba zena karze gorezeti ta soso koali tavi cheta soso kangali tavi cheta domba sonya pinji chani mi takayore su jan semcha giche su maimba su soso viche sonta soso kangali tarwata soso tarbato pinji cheta sonya domba chigla soso tavi domba zeore.
And what do we mean by saying the individual liberation vows? So these kind of vows are serving for, they are being guarded for oneself, for the purpose for oneself to be free from samsara, for the purpose for oneself to be free from different kind of problems. And otherwise, it doesn't refer to vows in which we keep for the purpose of others, for the sake of other sentient beings and so forth.
Mina soso tai domba zita soso mbaji kiche de chancho sepa da so songo mare vezene te da chancho sepa gelon da te yo sonta songo yore ina ya su mi ta tondrata ate soso tarbato pate tami nyame chenge to so songo yo sonta mi top tan de retje. Jatong chance se what so domba songo yora so tai domba zea so so jamba yimbi ni bata yo chapata yo mariro.
Yeah, so in general, we may have like this kind of doubt and ask, or like whether bodhisattvas, do they also keep this kind of vows, like one's own liberation vows, right? Because they have like the bigger purpose, right? But there is no like kind of contradiction. Yes, of course, that some of them are guarding this kind of vows. There are full ordained monks that have like this kind of vows and can be bodhisattvas and so forth, but they're not doing it like it is not necessary that one who is taking these vows, he's doing it merely for the sake of liberating one others.
Ani domba tala soso tai domba korol kaze yorezena korol soso tarbi gerzeni getamba shevare.
So yeah, you're mistaken. It is not. It doesn't mean that he does it only. It doesn't mean that he does it only for oneself when he keeps like this kind of vows. And for this kind of vows, the one's own individual liberation vows, there are 8 types.
Ani getala tombol nyani domba ze achi yorete nwe. Nyani domba retani ger chengo genyeng domba ze atala pama nitsne nitsa gore. Tani getser pama nitsne nitsa gore nga chason. Dini gerlo mazeni ta pamek domba palmenjo chigore tu chigje ti kal gelon mani da geta ma chanro ndwe gerlo maziat pamel ma to palio mari gerlo mi domba ziata o ti cheta ge chanro re.
Excuse me. So these 8 types are the following. So we have the one-day vows of a layperson. Then we have the vows of a male lay practitioner and then the female lay practitioner. These are 2. These are like 3 in total. And then we have another 2, which are the vows of a novice monk and novice nun. And then we have the vows of fully ordained monk. And then there is also 2 types of other vows of the female novice in training for full ordination, which is being taken before the fully ordained nun. So in total we have 8.
Hatel pamani zeni ta somna tsiyore to soch matsna nga ta chambure gening dom marco nyeni domba genyi domba getser domba gelomi domba gelomi domba zeti nga chambure.
If we are not making any kind of difference between male and female, so in total we have 5 vows. We have the one-day vow, we have the novice vow, we have the fully ordained vow, then we have the lay practitioner vow, and then we have the female novice in training for full ordination vow.
Tinoni genyen dans tombo nyeni domba zeat titsot nyeja chigje tem yo mari soncha de geta mayore.
And as for the one-day vow for lay practitioners, for lay person, so it is being kept only for 1 day, for 24 hours.
Ta chigni sabji sarion joki nima mashar koni sani nima Sharion di parte somar. Dirijo nima mashar koni domba te lengor. Tani sani nima sharion di sabjan sonar.
Yes, so it is being kept for 24 hours. And for example, if we take it in the morning, so if we take it in the morning before the sunrise, so then we keep it until the day after before the sunrise.
Matalita soncha get karaziti socha chigje kuma jawa nire matsankyo kasumre ani zishepa gje zawa jeta testagre.
So what are the type of 8 kind of vows that we need to guard in this section of the vows, of the one-day vows for lay practitioner? It is that not to kill, not to steal, not to have sexual intercourse, and not to lie. So among the 8, so these are the 4 rules
어떠서 남비나니 즉 가과이나 짜와지니다 내가 침보츠니 가데사 domba 참만할 때 가요레 대비지 간을 다 창들이 창대양 domba 참만할 가요레 디 간을 청거 nga치 되니 칠단 첸토제야 지오른 칠단 첸토제야的나존 쳇제야的쳇장리 치자외요 덴제야的덴당 저솔 진탕 침보다 즉보 던지 제야了这个嘛日子呢，这在前头去搞有的，那你干送长送这样去有的，干送的鸡蛋呀，砖茶呀，肉末粥啊，这做上第一年的了，长送的眼前人们这就不大呀，的你这个找你这个下有的，炖热素，那你这就开始在这啥的，这就开始搞的有的，我这个建议是，三个礼拜的有嘛，看上你接受三个礼拜的有。tanda genialio genialio yesalio.
So as for the 4 vows that we just mentioned, of the one-day vows, of the 4 kind of food vows that we mentioned, so these are the wood vows, and we can say that in general the different vows that are being presented in the Buddhism, so they like whether we are talking about the sets of vows of the lay practitioner or the ordained monks and so forth. So these kind of 4 vows are being the root which are always present in each kind of set of vows. And also on top of that, in this kind of set of vows, it is added the prohibition of taking intoxicants. And then another thing is that another vow is that the next vow is not to use high seats or luxurious beds or seats. And so it means that it is not alright that if we just kind of, in this kind of day when we take the vow, we will stay or will sleep on a very, very luxury bed or very, very impressive kind of seat and so forth. And then the next vow is not to sing or dance and also not to wear different kind of ornaments or jewelry and so forth. And then the last vow is not to eat afternoon.
나서다 동보비스는 득바임바체 득바임비차니까 거리 득바나그니가 대 사보임비차니까 거요레 드니 창동야도 득바레제니다 마레제니 카니시안도 단당아초 따다와 나오치나 득바 마이년지 셰샤 예나요 득 미거 미뇽바조 샤카레스 아랍 직점고다니 장장니 니바자유 니바강가르 징로 그래 손자 산지 쪼던 디그 가야는 창 하장니 니바 증군 자라치보 가요레스 콜테바요니 지나 창동마요 제니다 슈 가요레스 아니 올 레카로 몰라서 바타촌 나윙게레 아니 치투카지제야다 나가마이나 게론다 게스 사마 트론실린드로니다 칼라롱고 니마치글 테마치 롱관도나마 ཉ따바지테나 야포 멘만도 텐디게 아인조 테스터니 야바 페레제니 텐디 소리 야바 페레제티 셈테트 토몬도 차에 텐디 와타드리 이차니 포소 가장요리 쳬타 첸조다 테소 사마 치판도 텐디 자리 마소
So we said that in this set of vows we have the 4 wood vows and then the 4 other vows, right? In total 8. And the first 4 vows, so they are being, so they should be guarded and they are part of this set of vows from the perspective of being negative action. So all these 4 vows are negative action. And the last 4 vows, so now we are going to go one by one. So as for the first among them, the drinking alcohol, or so just taking intoxicants. So there are different kind of explanations. Some say that it is a real negativity, and some says that it's not negativity. But according to, if you are talking according to what, how like we studied in the Vinaya kind of text, so it is being presented as something which is not actual negativity, but since it is, since like by taking intoxicants, so it can make someone a bit crazy or a bit mad, so it can lead someone to do a very, very rude negative actions or rude transgressions. So therefore, it is being prohibited, and even more specifically, at the time of the Buddha, it was said that if someone is really following the Buddha, so one should really stop taking a different kind of intoxicants. So this is also one thing to be considered. And then the next one is what we said about not sing or not dance. This is the next vow. And this vow is being presented from the perspective of that sing or dance and so forth. It is something which is serving as the cause of distraction, the cause for us to be distracted. And therefore it is being prohibited. And then for the vow of not eating afternoon, so I think that this is something that may be related to the time in which the monks they used to go for alms and ask food, and then at that time they only asked one time each day for food, and therefore I think that from that perspective it was prohibited that it is said that it's prohibited to eat afternoon. And also there is the explanation that if someone is eating afternoon, so eat kind of too much, so it may cause certain kind of his mind like to go very, very high, like to be too high, something like this. I don't know how to translate it next.
Lasa tani ta jimani kyoso nyeni domba joba ina nyeni soko yore nyeni domba job shozen sabza zila kana tije so kyong domba ze yaze tani tet njapo yore tani ta chena ojo kinga moni sani ni mama shapata te jet song atal nyeni domba ze yore ta tije so kyong ze na tet manjari ta tani ni yon o tije so kyong ze na ta soncha kini chipa imbala 장축 그 셈물고니 셈차 탐차 그 제도 송야 치시 송자 대저 문자와들이 다니 지만년이 돈바 송제네 대게 송과 다니 저치 임바티니지
Senza dombarve.
돈바 지금 말타테 소종랑리 yana ko nyejarchi le tanda yete songushi nyejarchi tawtandawo yengo samari counter katile nandigan ro chi sari ngendeni nima chitenga chuchute trile nandri saro teche so donzeyata ta counter trijok nima shartani le nayo ani nima mashapatile nandri ko tet kabrio teche so jongu dombate sugla kana sakada mombo lengare sonsa teti na te tanda genyen domba da koni manja chabar karo genyen domba so chetre teche so domba zeyata semcha tamcha gede yalla gen nejar chigle songe sambi samladır te so tabir gen alıyor var teche domba yakın var
Yes, so if in the future you're interested in taking this kind of set of vows of the one-day vow, so you can do it, for example, in the main temples. Sometimes there are these kind of occasions of the restoring the vow ceremony. So in these kind of occasions, you can take this one-day vow. You can take it before the sunrise, and then until the sunrise of the day after, you can take this kind of 8 vows. And so there is kind of a different set of vows, which is quite similar to what we just described, and it is if I translate it literally, this is the great vehicle restoring the vow ceremony, sets of vows. And basically this kind of sets of vows, it is, we can say that it has like the same kind of things that you need to guard with regards to the vows themselves, but there is difference with regards to the motivation. So the first set of vows that we talked about, this is something which is done in the context of serving the purpose of one's own liberation. And then the other set of vows, which is in the context of the great vehicle. So though there are like kind of the same kind of rules that you need to observe, this is done in the context of eventually to be able to free all sentient beings. So therefore, this kind of set of vows, it is not included in the 8 types of the vows of the individual liberation.
Lasatini, Tati Gonda, Geni Pamaniga Dombateri, Geni Pamaniga Dombala, Soncha te Japo in Bachipari, that's Chipas in a Machi and Rotel, Masankyo Zayomari, Loyam Zayat Jagore, O Chimbai Sonsa, Masankyo Kayomari, O te Mangajan, Yapachipari, Yena, Tiso Tamanjavari, Yeni Takani, Yeni the Nyajar Chigre, Genya Zetat, Matel Lingore, Kati Dombata Lezonani, Masha Patani Songuin, Samban, Rematoje, Soncha Mano Chipari. Oh, no. Genyer ngai song samsung da tabji changna. Yala dia te yo na mena chen chen dundu. Tabji changna derindo e. Ke chikta da. Oh, tai changna te isa. Tai changna te isa re. Yala ka chani te nyore se ta ta. Te ni yala ma ta states nga. Yana loyem dere ta ta. Te ji gonda che ke ya po chi la song ta che ta ta. Ta te ya che ke mu ya po chi ta ya ma. Tai changna rendo. No na ya sa ni ga tsu no chi che chok shin ko shi ji ma ya. Ya nga la ta ni ji ma ya no na ga tsu ji ko. Te ni ha tsu ma sa ni na yin go. Ya la pa che ni ko no wa.
So then we are moving forward to the next two sets of vows, and it is the vows of the male lay practitioner and the female lay practitioner. So this kind of set of vows, it is similar to the first four root vows in the former set of vows that we presented of the one-day vows, and also it is also including the vow of not taking intoxicants. The lay practitioner or the male lay practitioner or the female male practitioner. So it has this kind of this kind of vows, and also things that are a bit different from the former set of vows is that in these vows there is no any kind of prohibition of not engaging in any kind of sexual intercourse, but not doing sexual misconduct. So because since also like householders can take this vow, so there is no any kind of any kind of idea of preventing. And also with regards to the time is being different. So the first set of vows that we discussed about, it is being taken for one day. And this type of vows, so we are taking it with the motivation that I'm going to keep it for the rest of my life until I die.
Well, that's what I so chikwana to Jima Jum Dragona Chimbi Dombari, Drop Chopore, Jumba Drop Choa Dombatari, and that Unity Chimbaga Langerilla, the Jumba Drop Chotatani, Trabal Kishariti, only gets some sort of cigarette, Pamanica, Chipama, to Chapario Samesa, something gondol, Gelo Mazini, Pamejamba Dombai, all Gesser Kagonlia, Jenny Nonita, Juni. Chino ne gelo mi domba se achiore gelo ma ta pomba ta dish.
So in the future, if you're interested in taking this kind of vows for lay people, whether we're talking about the vows of the male lay practitioner vows or the one-day vows that we presented, you can do it if you have the wish. And then there is the sets of vows of the female of the novice monk and the novice nun, and they are the same, I think, with regards to what is should be guarded, like what rules should be guarded in these sets of vows. There are 36 kind of rules or vows, and then
Tigala gelon pamani tre gelon le ni dianga psa samze ore gelon ma samja la chi ore Samja ka tere chi ore ta gelon ma ze atam ta kesel gelon ni ka domba son chan drag mare manyon da lukna panse an tunin drag mare on bochit ta ta so jip cha shetro maro na so ro tam chi shejo tan shero Geloma Chani Shimba, gets a Kalachani. Geloma.
So then there is another set of vows of female novice in training for full ordination. And in these sets of vows, so on top of the 36 vows that the novice nun is taking, so she's taking another 12 vows. And then there is the last two sets of vows of the full ordained monk and fully ordained nun. So for the fully ordained monk, he has 253 vows that he needs to protect. And then for the fully ordained nun, so she has above 300. I don't remember exactly the number.
Tako Ndramandra Mombo Chikashi Lupula Nipachewa Gelon Nyen pomoli pa chong kashil pomoli pa chong pelini pa cha tadi ramandra chi mambo chi sonja ta te kar rezion din dawa nan tani chi sonja boda pomoni yosu po cha tan ra maris zupo cha tan mandra tani samlo ta ta mandra wa chong res samlo ta ta mandra wa chong ni dinga pa kyo pa yang mandra wa chong res sonja te la teni chepa te mandra wa chi chong res chepa zina ta domba te mandra wa chi chong res no teni lam de teni intro.
So then there is kind of a discussion about like who has heavier downfalls from those transgressing like a certain vows, like whether it's male or female, like whether a nun or monk like have like a more like greater heaviness of kind of actions of negative actions. So it is said in the then it is said like the it is being explained that there is such difference. It is being explained in the Vinaya scriptures of the monastic discipline that there is such difference because the way that the body is constructed, the way that the body is kind of exists, of the male and of the female, there are differences. And since there are differences with how our body is kind of being built, so there is also difference with regards to the way of thinking. And since there is difference with regards to the way of thinking, there is differences with regards to the conduct of the body and the speech. And therefore, we can say that the way that the vows are working, or like the way that the vows like are being a bit different.
Laso tani domba se dia da sanji tombo sanji ni zonte tombo ni trishi ta so duya zina te tsawa ni ni mendo nga so yarkam chi ka chum zo anash tombo zina chapa tanta so gelon ze ata so le tim ze anda ze domba ze aga chi som da som gorin da som gorin zin kecha chi kamando ani me kashi kaman ra ja wala tani ta ni kama che chok mare wa ze anda ani kyazan ra she wala tani ta kyazan che chok mare ze tani sanji jarji pi ta lo samchala cheni lo gyachan nanchelu jura ti paru le trapata so kyoba maro rete che ondi tel chimri re so kyoba maro rete tri zo ni sanje gomba do wi kabla gelon le na chim ni gyanga che tasam re tarsha tini gelon ma ta zo le samgya ka ze re chi yor chi re tarsha ta ti jikula karche por sanje gomba zo ke ta kyo gomba zo sona karche por se ta kyo to taki taki che shos ta ngi shia ta zo che chokore zea tsolun tamba jima chona ne che te naje che shos na ni che machore zea naje re dewa ne jima ne te machora che shos ni te son yin son sa tanda domba chongton ra te ni chongsha
chemcho sarwana shin
bena so che macho zeo ne te tanda wi ne machora che ata chi Nyongon kala za chore ze anda wo ta ta chi na jima te tan ra we na te chen ro ya no yer tan ti sol ta ni on je wa te ta ta te tombo te cherche te mo shi.
And then we may have the question like whether all these different kind of rules and the rules and prohibitions, whether they're at the time of like just at the first when the Buddha started teaching something like this. So the answer is no. It is, we can say that these kind of different vows and rules are kind of a bit, kind of a law, like in the society. So it is not like that just a Buddha became enlightened and then he started giving like all these different kind of vows just from the beginning. Like saying like you should guard this, you should protect this kind of vows and so forth. It was actually in accordance to the monk's behavior. So for example, if there was a kind of a misbehaving monk that lied or stole, so then Buddha said that from now on you are not stealing, or from now on you are not lying, and he kind of bestowed these different kind of vows, and it was in accordance to these kind of situations, and up until Buddha passed away from the world, so he ordered 253 kind of vows for the male and monk practitioners, like for the fully ordained, and for the fully ordained nuns. So he bestowed above 300 types of vows. I don't remember exactly the number. And then also Buddha, like before he passed away, so his disciples asked him like, what should we do now? Like now when you cannot give us more kind of rules or vows to follow, so how we should act. And then Buddha said that what I gave you until now, so you can keep it, and then you can see in the future whether what I told, like whether what I taught with regards to the rules and vows are still to be guarded or not. Because, for example, if you see that some kind of activities, such as, for example, killing, which I prohibited in the past, is still relevant for the future, so this thing you should still keep guarding. But if, for example, I gave a certain vow, we can give, for example, like not eating afternoon, you see that according to the time and according to the circumstances, it is not suitable anymore, so maybe this is something that you can give up on. So this is this kind of situation.
아니 domba ziat kanga the ngena dupa kyang revesine te yang gumundu domba mombo chikta toma to loma ten rezini tinishin loma ten ziti karzin na so drige ge chani tin chi zo jare mungu ten ge sona ya dupan ro chi o mala pena taki jita ma cho romo cho ma cho tin la wora so chena dupa sta ke yo mari na ko drige chi ge so sa song go ya chi rez chi mombo yo rez.
So then we may have the question whether each kind of vow that we act contradictory with, so whether it's negative action or not. So it is not the case that every time that we do something which is in contradiction with the vow, so it's necessarily a negative action, because a lot of these kind of vows we can say that a lot of these kind of transgressions, we can say that they are kind of, or the vows, we can say that they are neutral, in the sense that they are merely transgressing like certain rule or certain law. For example, dancing or singing, like this kind of thing. So this is something we can think about it just like kind of a rule, and because it's rule, so we need to keep it. But it's not like if we transgress it, so it becomes kind of a negative action.
Ani takati ina te son de gorvezina musi yorvezina ota dupa mainke kaim battle macho na chenga kapsu musi yola pare ta na che kapsu karreze on te son ro ina macho gomba ina losar ta gael tsegre losar ta gaet so na che tsegre ti na lo dupa mainke domba ta so manche sa chi bena jitan ro ta chon chawan ro ta tinji karche de na chocolate sanji korongo no mayores gato gayos in yarka linka chikta losars in kunka linka rawzina ta losar ta ha korwa ni yor gombaina tini la no chenche denol dupa main ke toma kanga parche musin rawre dupa ata chanda musi o mata yo ni manche sa chigle shira ko yambo chang chegre to sanji korongo son yore de yarka gayetre atanda tarjin hiyarwa.
And then we may also ask the question whether we should always, like any time, is it necessary to keep the vows or not? So the answer is not, because there are times in which there is a kind of allowance or permission to do not in accordance with certain types of vows in certain type of occasions. So there is two types of occasion like this. So one is during the New Year, where we can say like the period of the winter, and the second period is during the summer, like we can say like the kind of the festival of the summer. So during these kind of special occasions, there are some kind of specific permissions that are being given for doing not in accordance to vows, but only those which are not negativities. So these kind of vows would be, for example, the vow of, for example, not dancing or not singing. So in these kind of times, it is being allowed, or there is kind of permission to do it. But, for example, not taking in intoxicants. So, of course, that this is something which there is no any kind of permission also during these kind of occasions.
Pena Japan Rochi gets along with Dombaji Jobson, Tamachical killing Tawari, Tamachical Somatuna Karche Boris in a take, Koyam with shoes on you. Tangi, Tombo need Dombaya Limbica and Machical Sombiansi. 아니 맞지 정아 다와치 로치 디지를 다 소마토와 던지 총소는 가르쳐 버렸어. 나 소마토는 dom바디야 피쇼나 워. 야 피쇼다 저그레드니 손테 겨로 잡아 말에 아우레스 델 니바 메아마즈 겨로 로치글 소요나 다와치글 소는 테 소마 제사테 데그레스 근데 지마 양조 야 잡아치 삼나야 초크레스 손사 소소 dom바 소니 마트로나 카티 소니 마트로나 다가제 이우 마자니 domba dangar machini ya pijok tan jigre la ko no ka ko ya ko shuje ta
Te yang te kasi so domba pulvaina nie pa yoma.
ni pa me ma ze gensa shego karze tanga songa te cholan ro mares ani jima yang jo je sana yang jo je chokre yang lochik te domba te ya pi lochik ji yang jo je ni tona je chokre ta domba ma pi ni so pamban ro kinin ro sona te ni yang jo je ayo ma ni ma so atel so ya cholan ro ni pa ayo te chama te yo domba jo mi chi ni so soni ma chna chi mu ji ya pi go 피아테요 미치를 피자는 인치 미치 라만다고 치고자더니 조금만 미치를 당이 좀 봐서도 사마리 당이 좀 그냥 잡아지 메제니 킹알 본본도 제로체 도 든지치라 저 든지고 좀 피자야 든지치면 미치요 말.
So then there is also like there may be also kind of a situation in which, for example, we are monks and then we take the novice vows for monks and then we say like then at this time like we take the vows and then there is like 1 week passing, 1 month passed, 1 year passed and so forth and then we see slowly that maybe we cannot observe like this kind of vows and then we may ask like what we should do in these kind of situations because I cannot now observe it like for all my life, so what should I do? So in this kind of situation there is like very we can say like bold mind attitude. In this kind of situation, we can say that as soon as one cannot keep the vows anymore, so one can just give them back. One can just give up on the vows at this moment. So, and then it is not like it will be like very great transgression or something like this. And also on the contrary side, it will be considered to be very good virtuous action because for the time that you were able to preserve, to maintain observing the vows, so there is a lot of merit which is accumulated. And then also by giving up the vows, if you see in the future that you can observe the vows in the future, so you can take the vows back. And this is something that you can do. But during the time in which you observe the vows, so you cannot do like all kind of random things or something which is in contradiction with the vows and so forth, as we said. But you just, if you see that you cannot observe them anymore, so you should just give them back. And then when we give them back, it doesn't have necessarily to be in front of a high lama or like high teacher or something like this. It can be in front of any kind of person. We can just say, I cannot keep these vows anymore. Then I just offer them back.
Voilà, c'est une chose. Tatini, chancho se pidomba zeate, chancho se paranga songoki, chancho se songoki wata. Nok domba zeate, nok nyami chiki songoki wachiri. Tata so somchat so riri chishimo kwachi. Inayon, chabar chigle, chancho se pata, nok domba zeate, sem soncha ranj chapore. Soso tai domba zeate, linga domba inze wole. Te chabar karrezeti, soso tai domba zeate, lita nok pakyopa maramachina, sem lichi control rawolanta, do chandra wokiewata, chiktani chedina. Kotavi tonate chonguyoma. Chancho sepi domban ro china semche jala control on the semche lutan the samlo chani koro tonale ngore nakki domba ina telikari sonta domba koma le sonomi chevare la sonya kavare.
And then there are other sets of vows, as we said before. There is the Bodhisattva vows and there is the Tantric vows. So the Bodhisattva vows should be guarded by one who is Bodhisattva. And then for the Tantric vows, these kind of vows should be guarded for a practitioner who is practicing Tantra. So there is no really need to elaborate on this so much. And I'll just say that these kind of vows are mainly vows which are related to what we should guard from the perspective of the mind. Because, for example, if we take the first set of vows, of the pratimoksha vows, which is like the vows for the individual liberation, So these kind of vows are mainly being presented from the perspective of the behavior of the speech, of the body and the speech, things that we should guard and observe from the perspective of the body and the speech. And otherwise, it is not really related to what we think in our mind, like whether we are angry at this person, whether we have attachment, and so forth. It is not like that. But for the other sets of vows, the latter two sets of vows, so these kind of vows are related directly with the mind. For example, if if in the bodhisattva vows, if we took the bodhisattva vows and then we get angry on someone else, or then we kind of give up on the purpose of other sentient beings. So we can say that at this moment there is a wood downfall from this kind of action. And even more difficult, these are the vows which are part of the set of the tantric vows. So these kind of vows are also like more directly related to the mind, but also respectively, by guarding them, there is a greater merit which is being accumulated in each one of these sets of vows.
Sonza, they don't pass some song gala call Nima Jirmochi, Tenichi Son Yores. So they don't buy the China Pachi call Tomachi Mundus, Son Tomato Kanichi Mundus. Chancho Sepi Dumbal, Tom Pemombo Kim, that natural touch troy, Chaldom Chetina, wasn't the race. And not the Dumbal Tom Montani. Coron son toa Patechi, Maton Chapa Babachin, Peccalice Indus in Italy son rese. A Jirmoche Tauchina, Domba Chimani, so on at the Calio, said Domba Tombo, that called Calicuni Mundu son rese and Chabatanici can over.
And then there is also, we can also refer to the different levels of difficultness of observing the different kind of vows. We can also refer to the example of the Jetson Kappa. So Jetson Kappa, he says that with regards to the individual liberation vows, the pratimoksha vows, so he says that he didn't have any kind of a downfall by observing these kind of vows. But for the bodhisattva vows, he said that he has a lot of downfalls with regards to observing these kind of vows. And even more than that, with regards to the tantric vows, so he said that he has he has like so many kind of downfalls of regarding these kind of vows. He said just kind of rain is falling, just like rain which is falling, he had so many downfalls. So even for a person like such as Jetson Kappa, so he had difficulties with regards to guard the two latter sets of vows, but with regards to the first one, he had no kind of difficulty.
Lazota, Tenido inside the University. Not so Domba Court, non shape Domba Court, Tenichi, two that I also Domba Jenketiman and Domba Shegua and I Domba Kisheti Jima, non shape Domba, they at the Karina, some of the patching goats and jewelry. Zaichan is some your budget, Ling up a Domba, the Yiki Domba your budget. After so Somantia, so Sontona Catseparta Son Matonaya, Pijana and Riachit, so Hakona things.
Yes, so therefore this is the general presentation with regards to the vows in Buddhism. And it is not like that if someone of you didn't take vows, so you necessarily now need to take vows and ask for vows. It is not the case. It just wanted to give you general explanation, kind of a framework that you have like broader picture about Buddhism. So this is kind of the general explanation of the vows, like what you can keep. You can keep if you cannot keep, so you can also give back the vows. So yeah, this is the explanation.
Lasso, Tani Jima China in the Tatangas of Seki Kolas Chindo, Ratri, Toa Jaki Chikama, Natrichindo, Trachalindayo, and Trachikin Chitimena Jasharo, Jimatalta, give Chimbula, Naleni, Seki Kort Chijana Samson.
Yes, so next class we are going to talk about the generation, the mind of enlightenment, which is more specifically in the context of the stages of the path of the person with a great capacity. I thought maybe to discuss about this today, but we didn't have much time. And therefore, if you want, if you have some questions, so we can do now a Q&A session. And if not, we can just finish the class.
Yeah. So for us lay people, the vows we can take is 5 lay precepts and 8 Mahayana precepts. Is that correct?
5 lay precepts and the 8 Mahayana precepts.
Yeah.
That's on in so Miki la Chashagna. Tekpachempo Dompage. Karemikia Dompanga. Then the Shik. Alaya Mato Yombe.
Gaining Tanda Chancho Sepi Dombata, Norki Dombazet, Makiatan, Java Kishayo Marta, Samaglin. Tanda Soso Dai Dombanola, gaining Dombata, Yeni Dombanito Mato Merwa, Mato Chancho Sepi Dombata, Norki Dombata. So check it on a Picabrio at Samaglin.
Sotara Dompano, again, not a get on the So if you're talking about the vows that you can take part of the set of the 8 pratimoksha vows, the 8 individual liberation vows, so there are 2 sets of vows that a layperson can take. So these are the vows of the lay practitioner and the one-day vows. So these kind of sets of vows, so the vows of the vows of the lay practitioner, they are consisted of 5 kind of rules or vows that one should follow, right? And then there is the day vows, which are kind of different sets of vows. But with regards to the bodhisattva vows and the tantric vows, so there is no any kind of differentiation between a monk or layperson. Everyone can take these vows.
Because checking the transformance in a lecture.
Yes, so if someone is have like the required conditions for taking these kind of vows, so each one can take it.
Okay, but it just needs to be conducted by the higher rank of monk, right? The qualified one.
And it's just Berna certainmente trapa shigitsane don't there's a sugar.
Chancho Sepi Dombayo.
You mean to the bodhisattva vows?
Yeah.
Go Yokimash. Counter Chancho Sepi Dombayo such Kusanilin and report. Trapa Ingo Chioma, Chancho Sepi Domba, the Norti Domba, just a Trapa Ingo, Pena, and the Musita Hakomas on the Penachita Military Pandichin, Lotama Bal, Donis Chukanga, Chancho Sepi Domba, that's a Kotani Leo, Nakadomba Tama, Jenshita Shani Terashia Yoma.
So there is no such a need. So if you're talking about the bodhisattva vows or the tantric vows, there is no need to take them specifically from a monk, because one can also take them from a layperson. One is
Domba yourself Kashama, Pena Noki Domba, the Chancho Sepi Domba, the Kadragon the Leancho.
So even so, one can take them from anyone who can have like this kind of vows, but even there is no need even to take necessarily from a person, like an actual person who has these vows. One can also take them in front of a statue or in front of a tanka and so forth. So this is also possible. And also there is the example of Geshe Lharampa, which most probably he took the bodhisattva vows and the tantric vows from his master Marpa, which was a layperson.
And Suzutai Domba, any magically the magical signing Patalingore.
Yes, but as for the individual liberation vows, the pratimoksha vows, so most probably it needs to be taken from a specific person, and more specifically, most probably we can say that also from monk or monastic person. Yes, so Alejandra, I see that you have a question.
Yes, thank you. I read a little bit of a book from the Tibetan classics, and the book is called The Mirror of Burial. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but from what I understood is that they talk about the vows as a medical treatment, like if someone has ill health and they take certain kind of vows to reach a better health. I wonder if that's the right way of understanding, if I understanding that correctly, but it seems to me like in that book they describe the vows as a medical treatment almost.
Ta dina no la cara sono reserna, ta dom passerete te mencio nascere. Ani mencio nascere in pegenza te cara reserna per una soso la naza te protenginat ante magic pechane ani te mencio chegi chato ani soso te dom panashi. Lengo resa ta ne kolen ante edrik.
Ta tetan jiga yimbari tanda kirtoni nanchu gu nyamlen chama nga so sem gu gange sebi chetrwa domba yang te yimbari domba zia ta su domba zia ndri ka jan ro chi so konjo monjo kyopa ta sem da zu linga rin so ta linga ka kyopa konjo monjo diri du sel manjo wi chet rawan ri chi gyam ni ko ka jan wa chi le domba ze wo so ta tri so ya po chi chi na makorong chi linga ka kyopa yarab chakarela dupa makewaya mambochi masawa tenji pento chimbo yosmonta tsuchum zea sajin namjin zi nyamlin bachi le tena sajin da tsawa chimbo yin zi tenji momo sonwa ri sangye undo tsona aso yin bachi.
Yes, so of course, the way that if you understand it this way, it's there is no problem. It's even great, and we can say that all different kind of practices which are being taught from Buddhism, they are practices which are designated eventually to help us to get rid or to remove different kind of problems that we have in our life, and therefore more specifically, the vows are for us. The vows are kind of prohibiting different kind of actions, and more specific, particularly actions of the body and the mind, which are negative and prevent us to engage in this kind of negative actions. And we can also kind of think of the vows like kind of a fence that we set, and then it protects us from crossing like a certain boundary. And therefore, if one has taken vows, so it's going to help one to cultivate a good kind of behavior from the perspective of the body and the speech, and also it's going to help one to restrain himself from doing different kind of negative actions and transgressions. And we can also think of the vows kind of a ground, like which serves as a basis for us for other things.
That's
protect us. Okay, thank you. So,
yeah, sure.
So then the nuns have more vows, but I'm wondering what are the vows that the monks don't have, that the nuns do?
Yeah, I'm curious. Like the nuns got 127 more vows than monks.
That's all. Magno pegiunse in pazzanto maseia ta perna ta gelon masumpe dompa ta gelon masumpe dompa te so care dane sana ta gelon masumpe dompa gya ta nishutsa dun
mar gelon le ni gana psta sum gel
perna gelon le lakre gelon le mamwe gelon masumpe dompa la gya ta nishutsa dun yore nishutsa dompa te so care desa
Tate mai namje na tomo mai bayore da ta lo thodi tangi sheto sa riwaz sheto samar mai namje zeni ndowa korongo sanje sungo na do mek domba ko ten shiore ta ogelon pal menjo mal yonjo kar re pal yonjo mal menjo kar ndi chabar shiore ta tangi lo thodi da riwazi yon samare.
So there is no way that I'll be able to most probably there's no way that I'll be able just to recite this kind of just to explain this kind of difference from memory. This is not something I remember. It is being mentioned in the text of ethical discipline, which were taught by the Buddha, and these kind of texts explain what kind of observation are unique for example. You've been saying that because you're going. Sorry. So there is like this kind of differences are being explained in details there.
Mano shon droa ga nengan droa the kar rezena ta kap te ti geloma de so sondu gelungu de so zondo ani no lo nyota leondi tanga sanje le a junro ndo sanje le a junro ti te sanje tenji kamare se kap te ti la ani chungi yore chungi de zene ani chungi yore ko so pe pala kati na nyota zo ni sanje sa ya ju ka do ya chumre zo ya nyota zo ya chumre zo ma che sa geloma chungi de ze ya chi yore tesore tap chaba da so no le tik de ze yang pala chi yore ko so man che sa nyota zo yore ta kap te ti nyota mambo zo wala te ni ko domba ta mandro ne ngo te tel tiksha
Manio
ko te te to karo
So at the time of the Buddha, so if you are talking about why is there such difference with regards to the numbers of the vows for the fully ordained nun or the fully ordained monks? So at the time of the Buddha, the monks and the nuns, more specifically like the fully ordained ones, they had like kind of separate kind of sections. They live like in kind of separate kind of groups, we can say. And when there was like some kind of problem or like kind of misunderstanding, so at that time they approached directly to Buddha, like each one like from his group, and then then kind of asked the Buddha like with regards to this kind of problem. And it is said that at the time of the Buddha there were 12 nuns that made a lot of problems, that also like complained a lot of things, like they kind of had like different problems, and then I think that because of this kind of situation, there were certain vows that were established in accordance to this kind of situation. And also, it was said that there were 6 male monks that also like had a lot of problems and they kind of had their complaints and so forth. And according to this kind of situation, that a certain like set of vows were established. So this is the reason. Yes, so this is the general explanation, and if you are just talking about the root of this kind of presentation, and of course, that if you are going to explore these things in detail, so it will become more problematic, right? But this is just a general explanation.
Yeah.
Can I have one more question? So I understand taking vow is helping us to guard our behaviors. So is there a difference if you violate the vows, and is there a difference between people who didn't take the vow and people who take the vow? Yeah.
So ta niko alenta ya kareresa na ta domba serete te soso jona te sunya gi yocha no shinchagi. Ani tendrena meti wa tendreshira. Ta domba leninchik ta domba milene nir. Ani chawa chikbar. Ta domba lenien te chawa chapaina perna sochopa sopani te tangelwaina. Per dompa millennia te sochopa tangelwaina. Che per nascere c'è
la giochi faccio mushuci taso naroli te qualité de pe calio ma che ti tingol so faccio mushudu cioè che faccio mushur ta chi c'è in rotan cena domba legni di socena tu pacere la ore domba malegni di socena tendi tu pa mechewan ci sheyore ina ya tanti tesi chap khapo shure domba legni di mesena tu pa chendro ta malegni di mesena tu pa chondro karre ti sanje ta chipa dangen re so sanje le chipa dangen tu pa yo at parche khapore chichang mombo chure to so ngena tu pa yo mar la ore chichang chipa chang ba ze chure ta ki pena le jitang ngan jitang de na tu pa che yo mare sanje chipa dangen yo re ma tu pa yo ma to so ta te khapo shu chin do chwan ha chang chapore.
So actually, it is like kind of a renowned question, and there is a great debate about this kind of question. And this is also, for me personally, a question which is a bit difficult for me to give a good answer on. But this is a very, very good question. So it is said that, for example, if one has taken vows such as not killing and so forth, and then transgress these kind of vows and kills, so the negativity which is being the result of this kind of action is heavier. And for one who didn't take this vow but doing this kind of action, so it is said that the negativity is less heavier, is lighter. And then, like when we try to give certain types of reasons, so like it is a bit hard for me to think about what is the reason, because for example some people are saying that it is being it is like that because it is transgressing the the kind of rules, the vows that the Buddha set, like the Buddha prohibited. So there is kind of transgression with regards to this. But if this is the reason, so then we have to say that also, for example, if you transgress such rules that the Buddha prescribed, such as, for example, dancing or singing, so then the situation will turn out that also doing these kind of actions, it's also kind of negativity, but it's not the case, right? It's not negativity. So therefore, give a good explanation about it. It's a bit difficult.
是这样，我去这不送的，当个这这些你等下着了，但多的呢，中国那了，东北有你的切，少些呢你把切个嘞，没你的少些呢等你切个马来是你来不下有，你那他要了就这些干的搞不懂，大爷，你看这样想着吧。
Yeah, so since it became a bit late, so I'm just going to wrap it with just one sentence. And is that it is being explained in the Vinaya, in the monastic discipline scriptures, that that for one who taken vows, if it transgress something of this vow, so the negativity is heavier. But for one who didn't take the vows but doing the same action, so the negativity is lighter. But if we try to explain what is the reason behind it, so it becomes very, very difficult. So this is it. Yeah, so I just want to apologize because the class took longer time than expected.
So,
okay, thank you.
See
See you.